Do you think Australian cinema is just Crocodile Dundee, Strictly Ballroom, Muriel's Wedding, period pieces, outback sunsets? Well, there's a lot more to it than that. Back in the 70s and the 80s, there was a massive shift in film censorship and funding, which gave birth to a wild, untamed, and beautifully unhinged genre known as Ozploitation. But if you're looking at this massive catalogue of films, of cult films, and you don't know where to start, well, today I'm actually here to give you a hand. Today we're going to talk about the 5 films that I consider a great starting off point for people that want to get into Ozploitation films or want to learn more about it. Now, I will say up front, there's a fantastic documentary for Ozploitation, which is called Not Quite Hollywood, which is definitely something you should check out. And it's, I guess, if anything, it's my 6th recommendation that you should be checking out. It is well worth looking at. And if you want a really great overview and a deep dive into Ozploitation, how it changed the country and how it changed the culture of Australia or the film culture of Australia. First movie on our list is a film that's like, for me, is probably the best reason to watch Ozploitation, and probably the best example of it in my memory and in my eyes, and that is Brian Trenchard Smith's The Man from Hong Kong. The Man from Hong Kong was made in 1975. Was Brian Trenchard's first film, and it has got everything. It has action scenes in cars, it has fight scenes, it has hang gliding over Sydney, it has hang gliding over Hong Kong, has amazing fight scenes, as I just mentioned, and it's a really good film to watch. The plot follows a Hong Kong cop who's played by Jimmy Wang Yu, and Jimmy Wang Yu comes to Sydney to extradite a low-level criminal in a larger drug organization. The boss of this drug organization is played by George Lazenby in a great role. He's fantastic. Of course, he comes to Sydney, things go wrong, and he gets help from the local narcotics cops, and they're played by Roger Ward and Hughes Keyburn. Now, Roger Ward and Hughes Keyburn, if you've seen Mad Max, you've seen these guys. And what makes this film a fantastic watch is effectively the action pieces. There's so many action pieces. The stunts are fantastic. The stunts are amazing. Like I said, we've got hang gliding, we've got car chases, we've got everything. This film's got so much going for it, and it's so much fun. The mastermind behind most of these stunts is Grant Page, legendary Grant Page, who has been doing films like this, or have been doing films like this for years and years. And what he does in this film is just amazing. He has a small part at the beginning. It has a great fight scene with Jimmy Wang Yu that it kind of starts in an alleyway and ends up in a Chinese restaurant, a large Chinese restaurant in Sydney. And it's really fantastic fight scene. You really should check it out. So when the film came out, it didn't do great box office, but it's really become a cult film, and a film that is really something that I would consider a classic Ozploitation film. So now we're going to shift gears from martial arts action and crime to pure psychological tension with 1971's Wake in Fright. Now, if you look this film up, it's not strictly categorized as a conventional horror film, but I've got to tell you, it's one of the most deeply disturbing and unsettling, terrifying films you'll ever experience. It's a fantastic blueprint for what I guess you would call Aussie Gothic. Directed by Ted Kochev, the film follows John Grant, who's a cultured, slightly arrogant schoolteacher who's indentured to the government and to become a citizen, to become a school teacher. So to do that, he needs to spend 2 years going wherever the school system tell him to go. So he's stuck working in a little outback outpost called Tabunda. Now, when the Christmas holidays come around, he decides he wants to travel to Sydney to meet his girlfriend. To travel to Sydney, he needs an overnight stopover in the rough and tumble town of Bundayaba. Bundanyaba, I think that's how you say it. Affectionately known by the locals as the Yabba, and the Yabba is how we'll call it from now on. That stopover is where the nightmare really begins. John goes to the local pub and meets an easygoing local cop, played by the legendary Chips Rafferty. and gets introduced to the aggressive hospitality of the town. When I'm talking aggressive hospitality, did I say hospitality? Hospitality, the aggressive hospitality of the town. When I'm talking aggressive hospitality, I'm talking about being offered drinks all the time. Do you want another beer? Do you want another beer? And what follows that is a brutal, claustrophobic, alcohol fueled downward spiral into madness, hypermasculinity, and despair. Now, I will give a warning with this film. If you're not someone that enjoys or likes, and I wouldn't say enjoy is the wrong word. If you're not someone that likes animal violence or violence against animals, there is a scene that is probably best being prepared for, which is a scene where a whole bunch of beer-fueled Aussies with John go out shooting kangaroos at night. So that is in the movie. So you might want to be aware of that before you watch it. But the scene actually says a lot about the locals and how they spend their time and what they do. Keep an eye out also for Donald Pleasance. Long before he was playing Dr. Loomis in the Halloween series, he turned in this masterclass of performance as a brilliant, washed-up doctor of the town with a deep, deep, deep dark side. Wake and Fright was actually lost for decades until a master negative was found in a shipping container in Pittsburgh, of all places. So it's been remastered. It looks beautiful. Umbrella released this beautiful 4K set. It looks amazing. The extras are fantastic. It comes with everything. I think the set that I got came with a little MIDI glass and a 2-up coin, and it's really great. The movie is powerful, sweaty, unsettling, and will stick with you for days. So I would definitely recommend this movie. If you're a fan of nature fights back movies, then 1978's Long Weekend needs to be on your radar. But this isn't a standard monster movie. Director Colin Eggleston injects a brilliant twist by centering the film around a toxic, crumbling relationship, and you genuinely struggle to actually feel anything for the main characters in this film. John Hargraves and Briony Behetz star as Peter and Marsha, a deeply dysfunctional couple who decide to take a long weekend away, I guess to try and do something, help their relationship. Marsha doesn't really want to go, but she ends up grudgingly going along anyway. And right at the get-go, you can see the cracks in their marriage, and they project their bitterness entirely onto the environment around them. Peter carelessly tosses a cigarette from the car window as they're driving, which starts a small fire. He accidentally hits a kangaroo. There's some more kangaroo issues in this film if you don't like that sort of thing, and kills this kangaroo. And once they set up camp, they just continue to disrespect the wilderness. The film is an incredible masterclass of generating slow burn, tension, and atmosphere without relying on cheap jump scares or anything like that. It's a real slow burn. And just make sure that if you check this movie out, that you see the 1978 version and skip the 2008 remake entirely. Our fourth film is Road Games from 1981. And the best way to describe this is Rear Window on Wheels, I guess. It's a brilliant, suspenseful thriller, heavily influenced by Alfred Hitchcock, and it features a phenomenal international cast. Stacy Keach plays Patrick Quid, an eccentric, poetry-quoting truck driver hauling a load of meat across the vast expanse of the Nullarbor Plain. To pass the time on his endless journey, he's often making up stories about the people he passes on the road. But things get deadly serious when he begins to suspect the driver of a green van is actually a serial killer dumping the bodies of young women along the route. Along the way, Quid picks up a hitchhiker called Hitch, of all people, who's played by Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis was already iconic for films like Halloween, The Fog, Terror Train, and I think she'd only just recently come off Terror Train before doing this film. Her and Stacy Keach engage in a tense, high-stakes game of cat and mouse with the elusive killer, who happens to also be played by stunt maestro Grant Page. The film was shot on location across the Nullarbor and in Melbourne by director Richard Franklin. who was a disciple of Hitchcock and actually went on to direct Psycho 2 just a couple of years after this. Quentin Tarantino has repeatedly called Road Games his favourite Australian film of all time. Not sure if that's still the case, but it was when I was looking up information on this film. It's got style, the pacing is fantastic, and it's got a fantastic chemistry between the leads. To round out our list, we also have to look at the lighter side of the genre, because Ozploitation wasn't just about murder, action, car chases. It was also famous for its raunchy comedies. The absolute pinnacle of that era is 1973's Alvin Purple. This sex comedy stars Graham Blundell in the title role, and to say it was a cultural phenomenon in Australia is an understatement. The premise is hilariously simple. Alvin's just an ordinary bloke. He's a door-to-door waterbed salesman, which is strange, but there you go. He's a door-to-door waterbed salesman who seems to have this aura about him that women can't resist. So this leads to bizarre, inexplicable kind of situations with women. And the movie is kind of very much a sexual romp, but it's not hardcore. It's not, anything I would say is over the top, except for the comedy, of course. Desperate for some peace and quiet, and from the non-stop female attention, Alvin eventually turns to a therapist to help him, but this just makes things worse. And it leads to further chaos, such as Alvin being accused of owning a brothel and making illicit films at the same time. By today's standards, Alvin Purple is quite mild and tame, really. But back in 1973, it was incredibly bold, cheeky, and pushed the boundaries almost as far as they could go of what was allowed on the screen. Film critics detested the film when it came out, but the public voted with their wallets. It became a massive box office hit, pulling in $4.7 million at the time, which adjusted for inflation is about $49 million today. The film is a fascinating, hilarious time capsule of 1970s Australian pop culture, and that's why you should watch Alvin Purple. So there you have it. There's 5 essential Ozploitation films to kickstart your journey into the genre. If you want to hear full deep dive discussions of these films, look up my playlist of podcasts of A Dingo Ate My Movie, which is a podcast I've had for a few years now. And we've covered all these films in depth on that show. And for those of you that have already dipped your toes into Ozploitation, what would you consider your favourite films, or your films that you would recommend to somebody to go and watch for the first time? And let me know in the comments what they would be. Thanks so much for joining me today. Have a great day. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon.